For a lot of us, when we hear the word homeschooling, the first thing a lot of us feel is fear. Fear that we're not smart enough to teach our kids, fear that our kids will not be able to socialize with other people, and fear that it will be an all-consuming job and we won't have time for anything else. Hi, I'm Livy. I'm a second-generation single homeschool mom to two amazing kids, and I would love to share with you my story leading up to why I believe homeschooling actually is worth it when I didn't think it would be. Yes, even as a second-generation homeschooler. This video is in collaboration with Daisy at Journey in the Home. If you want to hear from others like me, be sure to click the playlist linked below. Let's dive right in. I think given that I was homeschooled, most people think that I'm kind of biased and I always leaned in favor of homeschooling, but actually the opposite is true. I did not enjoy my experience, and by the time I finished high school, my parents were so scattered and so inconsistent in what they taught us and how often they taught us that I had actually picked up and taught my two younger siblings to read, as well as done most of the work to finish high school completely on my own. I genuinely believed that I would have been better off in a school, and I still hold that opinion today. So then, why do I homeschool my own kids? In the spring of 2018, I was married and had a little boy that was about to turn 4. And I was determined that his education would look extremely different from mine. And so I already had pre-K on the mind. And it just so happened that literally the next block over from the house we were living in, there was a private Christian school with a really great track record. This school seemed like such a godsend because it was exactly what I wanted. It taught Christian values. It had all-day programs available early on so I could work like I wanted to. It had financial assistance available. They combined different grades for certain activities for optimal socialization, and they had the parents very involved. I made a phone call to the school administrator. We talked for a really long time, and I felt really encouraged and confident about moving forward with this. So just a few days before I intended to enroll my son, I decided to pray about it and ask the Lord if this is what I was supposed to do. And no sooner had I prayed that prayer than I clearly felt the Lord say, he will be homeschooled. And it really shook me because I was so confident that that was not what I was going to do. And I was like, Lord, and I heard it again, he will be homeschooled. And at the same time that I was upset about it, I also had this indescribable peace that everything would be okay because God would be on my side if I decided to go down that road. My husband was not homeschooled, so I was very surprised when he was totally on board with me homeschooling our son. That seemed like one more sign from God that this is what I was supposed to do. And so at that point, I was feeling pretty confident. Like, I was homeschooled, I know what I'm doing, it will be simple, and I will be really good at it. Not only was that not the case, but the first 2 years of homeschooling him was so frustrating and dysfunctional that I didn't know if I could keep going. Also, keeping in mind that we then had our second child, our daughter Daisy, around the time that I started working with him. My son Silas was not retaining the preschool level information that I was teaching him every day. I was dreading teaching it and kind of in denial about how much I really hated it. All of our materials were disorganized, and none of the systems that I tried to use to get the materials organized were working. And my whole homeschool philosophy that I thought I was so confident in was completely failing me. I vividly remember standing in my living room and being like, I can't keep going this way. No one is benefiting from this. I'm not getting the results I thought I would. Me and Silas are both miserable. And so I went to God again and I prayed about it, and I just felt like He was telling me I had two choices. I could either give up and put him in school, or I could start over with a lot more humility as a beginner. Instead of saying I was homeschooled and I know what I'm doing, say nothing I've tried works, I don't know what I'm doing, and I am going to learn from people smarter than me. And I decided that if I was willing to learn from people wiser than me and really humble myself and continuously learn and apply new principles, new ideas, look at new curriculum, that there was no way I could fail if I just decided to not give up. And so that is what we did. Homeschool books and YouTube videos became my best friend. I watched all kinds of curriculum reviews. I read all kinds of homeschool books with all different philosophies and homeschool styles and approaches, and our experience transformed. One of the things that I had to accept was that I had the wrong attitude and wrong approach entirely to homeschooling. I was approaching homeschooling with the goal of my son being smarter than his peers, and that would somehow set him up for successful adulthood. And what I realized in all the researching and learning I did was that this is a very narcissistic approach to homeschooling. You can homeschool very consistently and very well, and they're still gonna land where they land in comprehension. But the goal shouldn't be to check boxes and to maintain a certain image as a parent. The goal should be to get our image out of the way entirely and focus on the benefit of the child. I had to learn how to overcome and release that narcissism so that I could connect with my child and work alongside him. In all my research on curriculum and all the reviews and flip-throughs that I watched, I also decided that we needed to hit reset on the curriculum we were using. I made myself slow down and do that research. And what happens when you do that is that you start to catch the vision that the teacher, who is the author of that curriculum, is casting. And when you do, you cannot get enough, and you start to see the brilliance behind all the different approaches. I was excited to homeschool my child all over again. I opted for a curriculum that I knew would be about comprehension and not good grades. And wouldn't you know that all this positive change, all this effective change, came to be in the throes of the year none of us will ever forget, 2020. So not only was our personal homeschool journey transforming and becoming something beautiful and functional and enjoyable for the first time, but we were witnessing the school system fail so many teachers and families, and them feeling crushed under the weight of students not able to pass their classes. So while my personal answer is a big fat yes, homeschooling is so worth it, it is not for the reasons you'd think, and it certainly didn't come without cost. Especially when I decided to get a divorce during all this and still kept homeschooling. But something costing you doesn't mean that it's not worth it. Aren't we all seeking things that are worth investing our whole life on? And what could be more worth it than your children? Despite how hard some seasons have been, and homeschooling isn't hard all the time, overall, I love it and I find it easy. I can honestly say that. But even when it is difficult, I find it worth it on every level. It's worth it for the purpose of social skills. Homeschooled kids are generally around a wider variety of ages, and so they tend to do better socially because they engage with people older than them that challenge the grammar they use. If you wanted your baby to socialize, you wouldn't put them in a room full of babies to learn the English language with one teacher. You would put them with families of all ages. It is worth it in the way of physical safety, which I probably don't need to expand on much. Public schools are less and less a safe option for our children. It's just the way it is. It's worth it as far as academic performance goes. A lot of colleges seek out homeschoolers because they tend to do better academically. You're essentially getting a one-on-one tutor through your entire academic career by being homeschooled. And it's worth it because I'm investing the majority of my time into giving my children the best childhood I can possibly give them. And as a mother, you cannot convince me that there is any better use of my time. If you are willing to set yourself aside and come alongside your child in their education, I promise you, you will be so glad you did. Remember to check out the playlist linked below if you want to hear more from homeschooling mamas like myself. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, you definitely want to check out my 11-minute free video class, Homeschooling, Excellent Time Management, the 3 keys to how I thrive as a single parent, how I time block, how I manage my time, my mindset, everything. I go over it all. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Happy homeschooling.